In British Columbia, resource extraction is the primary source of wealth. Urban centres benefit from rural development. In the past decade, almost 200 schools in BC have closed. A high percentage of these are rural. This is the story of how people across BC are trying to save the heart and soul of their rural communities.
We simply decided to occupy the school.
The plan that the community had was to maintain control of the school.
I mean, one should not forget that the issue at stake here was not the school per se. A school is it's only a tool of learning. The issue here, what matter really here are the children.
It was primarily a financial reason at that time. The reason to choose Forest Grove wasn't entirely financial, and that had a lot to do with the fact that you had two schools about the same size within 10-minute drive of one another, and if we were looking at closing schools, it seemed to make sense to look at those two and see if we could consolidate the two of them into one larger, more viable building rather than leaving two fairly small, vulnerable schools.
A few of us decided to, I thought on the last day of school when they had their awards and stuff, we decided that we were going to sort of take over the school, and just sort of snuck into the library and sat there and waited for them to lock the school up, and they discovered us there, and they asked us to leave and we said no, and that's when it kind of started.
A wrong decision was being made. So I went to the minister at the time in Victoria, and I also talked to the premier on what could be done or what should be done, and because school boards are elected, as city councils are and whatnot, I was told that, well, maybe we should let them make the decision. The idea was to have school boards have their own autonomy and do what they thought they had to do for the school district. So until the final decision came on whether the school was to close, the minister would not get involved.
In 2003, I was elected PAC president of the school. I had two daughters that were attending the school, as well as my wife who worked there part-time. In the fall of 2003, on October 26th, I got a call from a school board administrator telling us that our school was slated for closure, and that it was up to us to prove to the board at the time that our school was worth keeping open.
When we first came here in 1968, I taught art and social studies and English at the junior-senior high. And then I did that for 6 years. And then I was a school psychologist before I came to Canada. And they needed one in this district. And so I took on that responsibility. I knew all of the small schools in the district, and one by one I saw them closing. And there was one in particular after I retired that I was absolutely shocked when it was closed, and that was 70 Mile. And I felt at that time I should have been a little more active in trying to do something in that community. But when this happened, that was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak.
Well, that summer, there were a number of people here who they set up the camp alongside the school, and we would go down there and try to get latest bulletins. So that the whole thing was was pretty exciting in a way. People were doing things like, carrying the protest to the legislature, and they had to sit in the school board office.
Went to a couple of the meetings that the school board held at the school. I was asked at the time, because I guess maybe because I'm an accountant, and I was given the financial statements and budgets for the school board. If they're talking about closing a school for $140,000, on the other hand, they're hiring 2 administrators.
Like it was, each time there was a meeting, it was full house, you know.
We were asked to give a presentation. There were several people or dozens of people who wanted to present things to the board. The board, without our knowledge, decided that they weren't going to stay any later than 9:30. Getting close to 9:30, the superintendent stood up and announced that the meeting was over and that people would just have to accept that. Quite a few people, and myself included, didn't believe that was fair. We had spent thousands of hours preparing for this meeting and didn't think that it should be cut short. It also made us feel that all the efforts we had made weren't actually being heard. They were just going through the process.
No, Forest Grove is going to be closed, and that's going to be it, you know, that's our decision, and that's it, you know, no question asked. It was clear at that point that the community will not let the school go so easily.
One of the things they said again and again is I admire their tenacity, I admire their boldness. I wish the hell they'd go home.
In the Cowichan Valley, the fight to save schools is ongoing.
Cape and Cowichan, well, the Community Alliance for Public Education, was actually formed out of a political action committee of the employee groups in this district. In other words, the various unions. And that's how it began. But we've moved on since then to incorporate parent voice. The employee groups, of course, were very, very concerned about the conditions in the schools for both their workers and for the kids.
Coxsala School was up for school closure 2 years in a row. It's a school that both my boys have attended since kindergarten. It's also the school in this district that really focuses on Hul'qumi'num language and culture. So it's a critical, important place for our youth to not only get their sort of standard education, but also to engage with elders and to engage in the process of learning what is important to us as Homo people. The first year we were told that our students were too expensive to educate and that our students' test scores were too poor. Most critical thing is education needs to be funded appropriately. We have all these expectations put on us as a school board and then even as individual students to achieve, and we're providing less and less and less supports within the public education system to help our children be successful.
My name is Debbie Martell and we are in Lake Cowichan. I was teaching at Stanley Gordon when it closed. The decisions are being made based on finances, the higher up, and then I think as you trickle down the ladder, they're trying to do the best they can with what they've got. People are starting to wake up. They're starting to really see and take interest. I think a lot of people are burnt out from the A.B. Greenwell fiasco.
The only reason the school was closed was mold. The school district 79 had put $1.1 million aside to redo the heating and mold removal.